Well, hello and welcome back to the Lamppost Listener. My name is Daniel.
I'm Phil.
And this is a podcast where we journey chapter by chapter through C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia. This is chapter 12 of The Horse and His Boy, Shasta in Narnia.
Or the gang is all back together again.
No, they're not.
Almost.
Not even close.
They're starting to get back together?
No, because Aravis, Hwyn, and Bree are not here.
A few people get to meet each other.
That's not even close. Phil, I'm looking at our notes here. I got to be honest. You and I have literally nothing written in our notes. I'm hoping that this is just... We just didn't put stuff in the notes, and we are not prepared at all for today's episode.
I feel prepared.
I've
probably read this chapter the most out of any other chapter because we keep kicking the can on this episode.
Yeah, we keep pushing this one back. I'm looking here. We've got nothing under the chapter summary, nothing in the read through.
No, I have the chapter summary. I keep it private because you always type something funny when I'm trying to read
that's
my
true.
summary.
Okay, fair enough. So I have the listener feedback. I don't have, I guess maybe this is a link to the email. Okay, there's a link. So the reason I say this is because there have been, I feel like multiple times we've prepared to go record this episode and then something's come up. So I did read it yesterday, but I think I originally read this chapter. We've been in limbo for like a month almost, it feels like, with this one chapter. So I had not opened the notes until maybe 15 minutes ago to be like, oh yeah, I think I did these, right? And not at all to communicate to our listeners that we do not prepare and don't care, because we do both of those things. We really do care a lot about this, but usually we have not kicked an episode down the line so many times.
That we've read the chapter 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, I mean, I've read the chapter, oh my gosh, yeah, so many times. I think I could do the chapter summary right now without having any preparation and hit all the... It's not. I can't do it. It's not an odd chapter, but it's...
But otherwise, you would be able to.
Perfectly, probably.
You're not because of what our contract states, but you could. You definitely could.
I've got here with me, this episode's releasing December 1st, so it is...
That's very pleasant.
It's the holiday season. I've got here a gingerbread porter.
That you've been nursing for an hour and a half.
Okay, I'm not nursing it. What would be the alternative? Would you want me to do the opposite of that? You want me to drink it really fast?
No, I think that we should acknowledge that we've already recorded something else before.
No, we have, but
Daniel and I have a paid gig for an animated cartoon.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Peppa Pig before, but Phil does all the voices. But I'm just getting in the holiday spirit here. Got
Hardywood gingerbread porter.
That's right. Nice. Imperial porter with ginger, vanilla, cinnamon, and honey. It's great. It's really good. I love the gingerbread.
Slightly less
stouts.
alcohol than a kombucha.
Not at all. 9.2.
9.2.
So you're
on
sitting
the
here, why
Richter
ask
scale?
when I'm nursing it? Because I responsible here.
Got to take it easy. Well, speaking of responsibility, I have refilled my can of lime sparkling water from Whole Foods with regular water.
That's gross. I do think we
should.
It is
very disappointing. Every time I take a sip, I go, oh.
I do think we should be good stewards of God's creation, but my goodness, no thank you. I will open another can next time. I would not do that.
You only offered me one.
You could have had another one.
I know. I just kind of feel like sometimes it's 2 cans and then it's 5 cans.
I do feel like that if I'm over, I would not feel like this at your and Sarah's house, but there are other friends of mine who I'm just maybe not quite as close with, where it's like, if they offer me a drink, how far can I go?
Yeah.
How many more can I ask for? Whether it's water or alcohol or even dessert. Someone's like, hey, we got a bunch of snacks in here if you guys are hungry. And I'm like, how? At what point do you go, hey, we didn't mean that?
Yeah, and it's an odd thing because it would probably be fine. And how much do these cost? Like 34.50 cents?
That one's from Whole Foods, man.
Yeah.
So
$10. That's part of why I held back. It's like, well, I'm going to Whole Foods for their water.
They deliver, man. There's just we don't do it all the time, but every once in a while, just with life and everything, it's hard to get out to the grocery store. So it'll be like, let's just do it. Let's just get it delivered. And it's, I am concerned about our lives being taken over by Amazon, but I'm not concerned enough to stop buying everything from them.
Well, you don't buy everything from them.
I mean, here's the thing that's crazy about it is let's say it's Saturday and we're like, we don't want to go shop. We don't want to go grocery shopping on Sunday because we like to do a lot of family stuff on the Sabbath. And It's like 4 p.m. We're like, we just didn't do it. We did not get to the grocery store today. It's 4 o'clock. We can sit down for 10 minutes, put all of our groceries together, and it gets delivered in 90 minutes.
Yeah. Well,
Delivery fee, $2.
That's always the hard thing, right? Some of these services are so incredible, but we don't want the negative stuff that comes with
and
it.
there is negative things absolutely that come with that, and we don't have to get into all of that here on the show about Narnia. But it is one of those things you're like, oh, I know that there are problems in this process, but also it takes 90 minutes.
Right.
So I know. That's how it is. I'm not good enough as you. I'm not going to sit there and refill a can of water. You just ask next. Do you want me to go get you one right now? The kitchen's right behind you.
I don't know. I kind of feel like I took a stand.
Okay, fine.
I think what I'll do is I'll kind of wait a few minutes, and then I'll hit pause when we're not talking about it anymore, and then maybe I'll go get one.
I think all of this off-topic banter is really great to start us off because there's not a lot to talk about in this chapter, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Well, here was my plan. I have something highlighted. It's the very first sentence. Was it all a dream? I thought we could maybe unpack how Biggie Smalls was inspired by that piece for one of his more popular songs.
Oh, goodness.
No, there actually is a lot, and I think a great place to start would be with a chapter summary.
You really think there's a lot here? I don't dislike this chapter by any means. This to me, this is all I'll say, okay? Because I have to be the one that has the final word here. It is. I feel like again, don't get me wrong. I adore the Chronicles of Narnia. And maybe this is true of a lot of series, but I have not spent, countless hours reading through them and then talking about them on the show. There are so many times where we get to an incredible chapter like the last chapter, and then you and I get prepared to record the next chapter, and I'm like, oh man, this is nowhere near as strong as the last chapter was. And it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it is just like I came last chapter with so many things that I wanted to talk about. And for this, I was like, I just really enjoyed reading it. And I think that is the beauty of Lewis here is that I read this chapter. I loved it. I didn't want to have to stop for chapter 13, but I did stop. But there's not necessarily a ton to break down for the most part. But you're telling me I'm wrong and you're right.
Well,
those are the words you used
like
literally 30 seconds ago.
Here's the thing. We'll probably say this a few more times before we wrap up the entire series. But C.S. Lewis did not write these to be read one chapter every 2 weeks and then dissected to death.
Correct.
But
which is
every now and then a chapter is really, really fun to pick apart and talk about all the connections it makes, especially when you get to the end of a book where you're able to talk about the entire story as a whole. You're able to connect it to things like the planets. There are all these big themes that there are also these recurring events. Like in this chapter, we'll have an amazing breakfast with a lot of detail.
Oh my gosh,
about the food.
It was so good,
and so that'll be really fun. But in terms of, I think that we come from different places. I love the little moments.
Well,
you're
North Carolina, I'm from
Virginia.
Points. Is that no?
They're pretty much the same.
It's like the same thing. We both grew up in the suburbs of a 200,000.
Yeah, but I feel like you were 35 minutes from everything, and I was 20 minutes from everything.
Okay, yeah, it's very, very different sides of the tracks there for the two of us. All right, you keep going though. What are we 30 minutes into the episode at this point?
Yeah, 37. No, we'll probably edit all that stuff that you said that is not publishable.
No, you think so?
No, okay.
Oh, that was hurtful. I was like, people.
I was saying because at this point, people are probably only seeing 6 or 8 minutes, depending on how much we've trimmed out of the intro.
See, I don't. I
sound like
know
you
this.
had said a bunch of other stuff.
I love meta stuff as much as the next guy, or gal, but
or Zuckerberg.
You really want to get Facebook to come after us?
No. Meta.
You want to get... I saw some really, really great history memes about that. I know if everybody has seen that Mark Zuckerberg, famous character from Aaron Sorkin's movie The Social Network, had... they've rebranded, I guess, as What is it called? You just said it. I forgot already.
Yeah, so there's the product Facebook, Facebook.com, which is owned by the parent company, Facebook, and the parent company is no longer called Facebook, it's called Meta. It's similar to what Google did when Google used to be the big company that owned a lot of other things.
Oh, now it's Alphabet or
Google,
whatever?
and now it's Alphabet. So Alphabet owns Google, but it's really just they're changing names and reorganizing stuff.
So my favorite thing is I saw a great meme that I shared with some of my students who hadn't been following the Facebook stuff because, Facebook's for old people, according to them.
Mm-hmm. They're in 6th grade?
Yeah, I mean, they really don't use Facebook. But I found a great one. I'll post it, although I'm telling you it now, so no one's going to click on it. It was Mehmed the Conqueror, who was the famous sultan who conquers Constantinople in 453, this army, and it's him superimposed onto Mark Zuckerberg, and instead of Meta, it says Istanbul. I thought that was great. I feel like people who love Lewis and medieval history will appreciate that. I think Lewis would have laughed at something like that. Yeah. He would have found that funny, right? All right, well, we'll move on. I don't even know what I was saying before you got us off topic with the Mark Zuckerberg stuff.
My bad.
The problem, this is what I told you already. The problem with us recording the Dancing Lawn first is that it puts us way too at ease. Oh, yeah. I think we need to record these first and then let it kind of free fall when we get to Dancing Lawn.
Yeah. You also probably shouldn't be wearing a robe and slippers.
These aren't my slippers. I wore these shoes to work.
I know.
Oh, dang it. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, Phil, I think, you're right. At some point, we've been talking for maybe 30 minutes, and I'm probably going to have this trimmed down to like 6 at this point.
We're only at 11 right now.
Okay.
I will say, in what you were talking about, when we have a chapter like this that may not have a ton of action or major plot points or twists or turns or any of that, this is a wonderful chapter, especially right before the holidays, where I can imagine just reading through this book so fast when you have an entire Christmas break.
Okay.
To enjoy it with. And this is a chapter that you would spend maybe 15, 20 minutes on at the most. And it would be a really delightful chapter, but then you would turn the page and be on to the next one. Mm-hmm. But because we're going to do this chapter by chapter, we are going to spend a little more time on it. And I think we'll have plenty to talk about.
No, we do. I'm mostly teasing here. I think we're gonna have a great time, and I think we should go ahead and let you do your chapter summary.
All right, there it is. Shasta realizes that he is in Narnia and comes across a hedgehog. After explaining the situation to the creature, it turns around and explains it to a rabbit, and on until every creature around seems to know about it. Finally, a red dwarf takes action by sending a stag to relay the news to Cair Paravel. The remaining Narnians provide Shasta a heaping amount of eggs and sausage, after which he promptly falls asleep. The next morning, he wakes up to the sound of trumpets and meets King Edmund and Queen Lucy. Corin is there as well, and he soon gets in a fight with Thornbutt, the dwarf, since the latter will not allow him to go to battle. Corin apologizes, but then pulls Shasta aside and has him dress in armor in case they get a chance to join in after all.
All right, well done. I think you did a good job fitting in all the necessary details there, and I think we should just dive right in and talk about Shasta waking up with this giant paw print in front of him.
Yeah, and he's thinking about how large a creature would have to be to make paw prints like that, and he's also talking about how deep they are, how much that creature must weigh.
Yeah, and then there's the Lewis has us. Do you want to go ahead and read that first paragraph?
Sure.
Okay. You said you had it highlighted, so I figured you were maybe a little excited about it.
Was it all a dream? Wondered Shasta. But it couldn't have been a dream, for there in the grass before him he saw the deep, large print of the lion's front right paw. It took one's breath away to think of the weight that could make a footprint like that. But there was something more remarkable than the size of it. As he looked at it, water had already filled the bottom of it. Soon it was full to the brim, and then overflowing, and a little stream was running downhill, past him, over the grass.
I'll be honest. Read this, a little bit confused at first. Mm-hmm. Where's the water coming from? Was this a clear to you the very first time you read it?
I think the first time I read it, I thought maybe it was raining. Mm-hmm. And the same for the second, third, fourth, and fifth time. But now that you pointed out, I'm realizing there's no mention of rain. So maybe it's coming from inside? Maybe he stepped on an aquifer.
It's it's not clear. And this is something that jumped out to me as I read this chapter, I don't know, for the 9th time yesterday. And I was thinking, there's a couple options. You're right. It could be raining and we just don't hear anything else, and that's totally fine if that's the case. I think that's probably maybe something else. It could just be that maybe there really is a stream coming down that's slowly filling up this paw print, or like I said, the more interesting thing is the potential that somehow water's coming up, which is very odd, right? Yeah. There's nothing that necessarily says that water's coming up per se. It says that, water had filled the bottom and it's filling up. But as you read down to the next paragraph, Lewis does not say where the water's coming from. He said that a stream is forming and running downhill past him over the grass. Now, that could be saying that this comes from up above and it's coming and flowing down into it. But I actually really like the imagery here of the fact that Aslan himself is the giver of life, right? Water's coming out. I think that's wonderful imagery. And even if this water is coming from maybe further up the little hill here, it still is the imagery of Aslan's footprint, the marks that he has physically left upon the earth are life-giving in and of themselves, and Shasta is being nourished by the work that Aslan has done. It's just a beautiful image. It's not like a groundbreaking image. It's one that anyone who's read the Bible and is familiar with how much water is used as imagery there,
the cup runneth over,
is familiar with. But it's still a really beautiful image here to remind us of the power that Aslan showed us in this last chapter.
Yeah. And there are also, shortly after the part we just read, there are mentions of how it's extremely cold, clear as glass. It seems it's very refreshing. And it's almost a baptism type scene. He's shaking the water out of his ears and flinging his wet hair out of his forehead. Not quite a baptism, but there is a lot of water imagery.
I think there is water imagery. I would push back just a little bit. Let's think about Jack's own theology here as an Anglican. He would be someone that's more on the side of with a sacrament here. And we talked about this at the very beginning of this book, where we kind of I walked back some of what we'd said about Aslan's table and the presence of Christ himself. I wonder if he would think of this as a baptism scene when there is no actual presence of Aslan. Aslan's not there. And Lewis, as an Anglican, is going to be more on the side of baptism as not simply a symbol. There is some kind of sacramental spiritual power occurring in that. But I do agree with you that it's absolutely using some of that imagery. I mean, literally from the very beginning of the Bible in Genesis, you have water being used as image. And speaking of Lewis's tradition, the Book of Common Prayer has some great language. I can't remember which. It might be in a lot of them. I think it's even in the 1662, which is a very famous edition of the book from the year 1662, that talks about kind of some of the liturgy over baptism even calls back to the way that God has used water to express himself and to communicate to his people throughout the Old Testament and into the New Testament too. So I think that Lewis probably is thinking somewhat along those lines. All right, well, let's keep moving on here. And what's going on next? So Shasta, he moves on. He makes a realization.
Yeah, he's looking around him and at his surroundings, and he realizes he's on the other side of those mountains.
Yeah.
Now, and he must be in Narnia at this point. Mm-hmm. And he also gets rid of a secondary character, the horse, after watching him eat, but it also helps provide information that he's really hungry. He wishes he could eat grass, and he can't. So he is still hungry, and then he runs into this hedgehog.
Let's talk about this hedgehog here. The hedgehog just says, "Good morning, neighbor." Pretty normal about that. So my question here, this is going to come up later. This is a good place to first have this conversation. All right. It's been about 15-ish years since the events of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I'm currently reading Wardrobe with my fifth graders, And we got to chapter 8 of Wardrobe, where they're all sitting around the dinner table. Mr. Beaver's given a little bit of exposition, telling us a little bit about the land of Narnia, saying that no one has seen a human in time out of mind. It's been so long since they've seen or heard of humans. And I'm a little confused now. I'm only
been
honest
15 years.
It's now been, this is 15 years later, but within 15 years, humans, their existence in this world has become so normalized that this hedgehog just sees a dude walking barefoot through the woods like, hey, what's up, buddy? How you doing? Kind of like the way that if I pass by somebody on the street, I might just be like, hi, good morning. If I'm like walking a stroller, going for a run, just like, little southern, hey, how you doing, kind of thing. This is a little odd to me, especially because later on the Narnians are going to show up at the end of this chapter, and there seems to be a lot of humans with them.
Yeah.
Plus, let's not even talk about all the humans in Archenland and in Calormen, although you could arguably say, well, that's not Narnia. That's not what Mr. Beaver's talking about. That's fine. Where are all of these humans coming from? Like, literally, where have they come from? The Telmarines haven't come to Narnia yet. I am actually unsure of how these humans all got in Narnia. Are they Archenlanders who moved away 10 years ago? Are they...
That's what I'm going to go with.
You're going to go with that?
I imagine that once they got rid of the Eternal Winter and the Evil Queen, it really opened up the borders, and they have a lot of people just stopping by.
These are all like immigrants to Narnia.
Yeah, but nearby. Neighbors, if you will.
Yeah. But it's... I don't know. It just feels... It's a little weird to me just how the hedgehog's just so nonchalant about like, hey, how you doing, bud? It's good to see you. Good morning.
Yeah.
But I think maybe let's go with that. I like this idea too. Let's go with the Archenlanders after the Great Thaw, if you will. The Archenlanders, many of them move up into Narnia, and this is kind of Peter and Susan's entourage and all of that are originally Archenlanders. Maybe they're even up from further north too. They could be as well. Were there humans up north? I can't remember. Not by the time we get to like... Yeah, there's just giants, I think.
Yeah. Maybe it's like a gradual increase in size.
Oh, you think so? Like they don't go all the way up north. They go to the people who are just like 6 feet tall.
7 feet tall.
Yeah.
But they're not 10, 11 feet tall.
All right, let's keep going with this conversation.
Yeah, so it seems like no one's really afraid of Shasta, and they're treating him like a neighbor. They also don't have the best sense of distance. Archenland, is it Archenland?
Mm-hmm.
Archenland is a terrible long way away. He's never been there myself. The hedgehog says he's never been there himself. And Shasta, kind of says, well, they're pretty close by.
Yeah, like it's literally the other side of the mountains, man.
Yeah. And I think that they're kind of nestled in their little area and they don't get out too much. Anyway, shortly after, the hedgehog says that he's going to go take a nap. Mm-hmm. Which is a very funny thing. But then...
Yeah, no sense of urgency here.
Yeah.
From any of the Narnians.
It seems everyone is very comfortable these past 15 years. And they've really calmed down. They're just saying hi to random people. And then they're going to go take a nap and really let the rest of their defenses down.
Yeah, and as it goes on, actually, the narrator even says that... This is the sentence that's written. For the truth was that in the golden age when the witch and the winter had gone and Peter the High King ruled at Cair Paravel... The smaller woodland people of Narnia were so safe and happy that they were getting a little careless. And you see that here. We very much see the same, many of whom were probably alive, a decade and a half ago when this was happening, who had become very, very careless. And like, hey, it's not like he was some random guy who was just coming out, screaming at you. He's like, hey, there's two, maybe they do feel like it's like that. Maybe this is actually all of them being polite. Like maybe they view this as that's this kind of like crazy guy coming out yelling at us about some random thing he believes. This is the equivalent of him of being like the guy yelling on the sidewalk that the aliens are coming to invade. And they're all just like, yeah, sure, thanks, buddy. I got to keep going. But you do something about that. Maybe that's what's happening.
I'm going to go take a nap.
Yeah. But they all do not seem all that concerned here.
And we see this when the entire crowd of creatures is talking and talking and talking, but no one's actually doing anything. This is some pretty serious news until the dwarf named Duffel, no relation to Dufflepuds.
I hope
or
not.
Duffers. I really hope so too. No relation, but he says, lion alive, and then they get a stag to go deliver the news so that this doesn't get any worse.
So
and I hope he makes it in time.
Yeah, these kind of level-headed, not people, but level-headed Narnians arrive with Duffel and the stag, and they go ahead, they get this taken care of. The stag's going to go off and let Queen Lucy know that, hey, we've got a problem. We need to address this. And then we actually spend most of the chapter now with Duffel and then 2 of his brothers, right?
Yeah, because they realize that once the stag takes off, they realize Shasta needs some food. Mm-hmm. So Duffel takes him back to his place, and they make a bunch of eggs and sausage and other stuff.
Yeah, the breakfast sounds like a lot of fun. Lewis always... He does just a great job with all of these. I mean, some of these foods are not even things I'm super interested in. I'm reading, I'm like, we got to have that. Thanksgiving is coming up. Mm-hmm. Not we're recording this just right before Thanksgiving. I'm like, I hope we have some of these things at the dinner table.
Porridge, a jug of cream, a spoon. All the classics. Mushrooms, coffee pot, hot milk, toast.
He's literally naming my Thanksgiving table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slices of brown stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he had never seen toast before.
That's great.
He didn't know the yellow soft thing that was smeared on the toast because he had never seen margarine.
Yes.
Kidding. He had never seen butter. Different time.
So a lot of different things here. And I love that what happens right after this?
He falls asleep.
Yeah.
They start asking him questions. They're going to have a conversation. He's just out.
Which is, as we all know, there is nothing better than just stuffing yourself full of wonderful food at a meal and be like, I'm going to go take a nap.
I mean, how many times have you had a great breakfast and then taken a nap?
I'm not a good brunch. So we, this past Sunday,
later.
we did your and Sarah's like 1 year later kind of
brunch,
wedding thing. And then the Sunday, the wedding thing, that we had the reception. And then Sunday morning, your family put on this really great brunch at a local restaurant here in the city, and I went and ate so many good things. It was such good. We actually sat at the same table, which was really fun.
It was.
And ate so much food. You did too. You got 3 plates, did you not?
Yeah. It was, and then I took home probably 40 servings of
that's so nice.
Sausage and bacon.
Yeah.
And
I went home. Anna was taking the kid for like a run in the stroller, and I was like, I had a paper to write, but I'm like, but first, I'm going to go take a nap for an hour. Did you take a nap after this big brunch?
No.
I
wish
you're
I
not
had.
you're not a big... No, you are a napper.
I've been taking some pretty epic naps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's like the perfect time for a nap here? Not for Shasta. Shasta needs to sleep for much longer than you and I need for a nap.
Yeah. Well, it depends. If there was a really early wake up time, like 4:30, 5 a.m., then a great nap time is around 11.
Okay.
Because you get all the benefit of getting up early, but then you take a nap and kind of reset so that you have enough energy for the afternoon. But realistically, probably around 3 p.m. And this is what's so hard is my church meets at 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah,
and it's great because you don't have to get up early to go to church. But then at 3:30, I really want to fall asleep.
Yeah, that's really a tough one. The 4:00 church is never. We go to the 9 a.m. service at our church, and there's a lot of times where I'll play drums sometimes, or I'll be doing some stuff with like with the music, and so I'll be there a little bit later. But I also do love we get our son home by like 11:30, so he can take a nap, and then that's kind of my like. I usually don't take like a nap during the day, but I am on Sundays. But I'll just go sit on the couch, which is with the window, just kind of quiet, just like have a little bit of rest while he's napping.
Yeah.
But the 4:00 one, that's a tough one.
Yeah. Well, the 4:00 is kind of the latest because if you go any further than that, then you're gonna really mess up sleep.
I have been known to take a 7 p.m. nap. Yeah. I've been known to do the 7 p.m. Dude, in this season of grad school, there are some evenings where we put my son to bed, and maybe Anna has something else going on, or she's out of the house and it's just me and the kid, and I'll put him to sleep, and then I will take a nap from 7 to 7:20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, or 7:30 sometimes. And it's not even like I'll stay up super late. I am a night owl, but I have not lived a life in the last 10 years really that allows me to be a night owl. Mm-hmm. Like working in a school that just is not a feasible thing. I wish. Like,
doesn't work.
I would prefer to be up every night until 1 a.m. or so, and then sleep in till 8 or 9. But I usually go to bed at like 10:30, 11, and then wake up at 6.
Yeah.
Which is not ideal for me. Other people might really like that. And you're kind of more of an early person. You like being up early.
Yeah, I kind of like both, and that's really tough.
Yeah.
I think the best is what I default to on a vacation schedule.
Okay.
Where you fall asleep in the middle of the day, take a pretty epic nap. Like hour and a half, 2 hours.
You got to take you sleep for like most of the afternoon on a nice vacation.
Minimum. And then you have all this energy at 10 o'clock. Everyone else is asleep.
Yeah.
And I focus so well from 10 till midnight.
Yeah, but you're on vacation, not like you're working.
Yeah, but I like to, I'll be drawing something, working on a comic page or something. But then the next morning, you're just so tired. Mm-hmm. And you get up, you do some stuff, and then you take a nap. But that magic time of 10 to 12, that's wonderful. But also, realistically, it's so nice to be able to get up. There have been a few nights, especially the week leading up to our party thing. There are a few nights where it was really nice to be able to get up early, get a whole bunch of stuff done before work even starts.
Well, that's fun. I'm glad we've been able to share these really important parts of our lives instead of talking about Shasta here.
The coffee and the mushrooms and another fried egg or so.
But he does. But Shasta does. Just to get us back to chapter 12, Shasta does go to sleep for a long time. It's actually just before we heard, and no one wants to hear me complain about this again, so I won't. He falls asleep right before we're told about how you can see the hill of the stone table from where they are, which again, they're at the very entrance of Narnia, and I have looked at that map, and the stone table is not all that close to where Arkenland and Narnia are. But you know what? I'm not going to argue about this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it's just also like how can you see the Western Mountains and the stone table, which we know has to be near Cair? Like, if you can see the stone table, shouldn't you also be able to see Cair Paravel, which is only a day or two's journey? Maybe you can't see. I don't know. I'm not going to do this. So
anyway, he falls asleep. He wakes up in time for supper, and then he falls asleep again until the next morning, and then he's woken by trumpets, and we finally have another connection to the Narnia that we all know and love from the end of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, because we get to see two characters.
Yeah.
This was in their prime.
Yeah, we get to see Edmund here. We get to see Edmund and Lucy. Now, we got to already see Edmund in Tashbaan, but we haven't seen Lucy, so that was really fun. There are some great Pauline Baines illustrations. There's two of them of kind of this whole party of people, and we get to hear about this great banner that's flying over Narnia with Lord Paradan. Is that what you're thinking?
I was thinking Piridan.
Piridan, sure. We'll take it. It's fine. And all of these centaurs, the bears, the talking dogs. There's at least 6 giants. They're all coming together. They're going off to war. And they stop at the house of the dwarves here and for a morsel, which shows me that in Narnia they do not have a Fourth Amendment here.
Which one is that?
That's the quartering of soldiers.
Oh,
they just stop at this house.
It's more of a suggestion.
The implication from King Edmund here is we're going to stop here and you guys are going to feed us and give us some rest, which this is not constitutional in the United States of America.
Yeah, but that's not where they are.
But it's not, it's not how things work in Narnia.
When in Narnia.
Yeah, in Narnia, the king and queen can roll up and you have to feed them.
Yep.
But who do we see here?
Well, we also get to see Corin again.
We get to see who is definitely Shasta's twin brother here.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
Daniel's pretty sure at this point.
I am pretty sure. And they're both super excited to see one another. Lucy's okay with this, but actually Edmund here, can I read to you about what he says here? Because I think this was actually my favorite part of the chapter, that Edmund's reaction to meeting Shasta after having kind of been tricked by this character a few chapters ago is really interesting if we think about his growth since The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So here's just the simple exchange that they had. Shasta says this: "I was no traitor, really I wasn't, and I couldn't help hearing your plans, but I'd never have dreamed of telling them to your enemies." "I know now that you were no traitor, boy," said King Edmund, laying his hand on Shasta's head. "But if you would not be taken for one, another time try not to hear what's meant for other ears. But all's well."
Some classic Narnia advice / reprimanding all combined into one. Yeah, I know that you're not this bad, but try not to do this next time, but we're still good. Kind of that trifecta.
Yeah, and this is such an interesting... It's not that interesting because we know who Edmund becomes through in this other weird timeline of Prince Caspian and Don Treader, where he's younger than this, but it takes place after, you know? But, Edmund, and like I said, I've been reading Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe with my kids, like I do every year, and Edmund, a big part of his story in Wardrobe revolves around forgiveness, right? And, Aslan and then his siblings forgiving him for his mistakes. But there's also, right, Edmund's inability to forgive Lucy, Peter, and Susan when they first make it back into Narnia. And Peter's like, you pick on everybody who's smaller than you, and he calls him a beast because we find out that Edmund had already been to Narnia before. And Edmund himself cannot really own up to his own mistakes. This idea of apologizing or acknowledging your mistakes and forgiveness is really something he struggles with, even outside of the really big arc of his, which is betraying his family to the White Witch. And so it's really enjoyable here to see Edmund do what he never would have done 15 years earlier, which is say, like, you're right, you did make a mistake. I know that, like you said, I know that what you didn't do something this bad, but it still was not the best thing to make. You're completely forgiven, but let's try to learn from this. It's the best kind of discipline that can be given out. And it's a really wonderful thing when you think about the long history that we have with these books.
And it's also, that's the end of it. And I think that's a key part of this too, is it doesn't drag on and on. It's not brought up again. It's dealt with in a way that is pretty final.
Yeah. Well, this conversation continues for a bit, and after a while, Shasta, he doesn't really listen to what Edmund told him to do, because about half a page later, he is going to worm his way. That's the language that C.S. Lewis uses. He's going to worm his way through the crowd to find out why Edmund is upset, because there's some other kind of, something's happening, and Corin has gotten in trouble. You can tell us in just a minute what has happened, but like, he was literally just reminded, hey, like, if business isn't for you, maybe you should stay out of it. And the very next thing he does is try to go eavesdrop on business that's not his.
Yeah. But everybody's going over there. I kind of understand.
I don't know. I feel like this is him not taking that lesson seriously. But what does he see when he gets there?
Well, it appears that Corin, his supposed twin at this point, potentially, has gotten into a tussle with one of the dwarves. And one of the dwarves was assigned to kind of keep him away from the battle. And if he had to, he was going to tie himself to Corin so that he would not go into battle.
Which is hilarious. His name is Thornbutt.
Thornbutt.
Yes, he is going to tie himself to Corin so that he can't go fight. I just love this idea of this dwarf. We don't get a lot of here, but who is really enjoyable in the few lines of dialogue he gets. I love the fact of, I just like imagining tying himself to Corin and then just going completely limp. And it's like, I'm not doing anything.
Dead weight.
I'm not doing anything. You must do it.
Pretty good, Thornbutt.
Yeah, there you go. But what's going through Corin's mind here?
Corin really wants to fight, and he doesn't see any reason why he shouldn't. But he's been told to stay away, and this dwarf has been given orders to keep him away, and he takes it very seriously, and that's what he's going to do.
And let me ask you a little bit about this, because is this coming? So Corin is an Archenlander. Is this coming from? It seems to be that this is coming from Edmund. I have the strictest orders from King Edmund, is what Thornbutt says, which is interesting to me because the king of a different country is giving orders to the prince of another country. I guess, Corin is only about 12 or so, if he is Shasta's brother. But it does seem like Edmund's potentially a little bit out of line when it comes to the political structure here. Although I think it's fine that he's telling, hey, 12-year-old, like maybe now's not the time to go to battle. Yeah. But also, like, didn't Edmund totally fight in Prince Caspian as a 10-year-old? Yeah. Now technically that has not happened yet, which is confusing, but it hasn't. Yeah. He'll go back to being young and then go back. But Peter was about this same age when he was fighting in Wardrobe. Do you think Edmund has somewhat changed his mind at this point? Or what I want to really dive into here, because we know that pretty soon after this, these characters are going to go back through the Wardrobe. At this point, do Edmund and Lucy remember life before Narnia?
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I bet if they really sat down, they could remember it, but I don't think they think about it. They're just caught up in the day-to-day rolling.
I am agreeing with you. I think that at this point, Edmund wouldn't even be able to remember the battle of, what was it called? The Battle of Baruna, right? Mm-hmm. From the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That they don't even remember these things all that well because of the magic that has been at work within them.
Right. Also, to be fair, there's a very different situation when you're the one of 3 other kids and you guys are on this crazy adventure, and when you're now a king who has, quote,
an army,
real responsibility, and you have someone else's kid with you. That's a little different. Like,
no, I'm
he's
not
just being very protective.
I'm not disagreeing. I think Edmund's making the right call here to be like, hey, like you're a kid, man. Just you're even getting to watch it. Yeah. I just it made me think about, like, does Edmund even remember himself? I know he doesn't. I just was wondering if he actually remembers being a part of this battle himself at a similar age. But I don't know, because we know that when they are heading back to Narnia, they don't remember the lamppost. Right. They don't remember the wardrobe.
Yeah.
And so,
but that's even more years away.
But it's not that much longer. I think what we're supposed to believe is that's only about a year or 2 away from here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This is near the end of their reign.
So it's only like 15 to 17 years.
Yeah, it's only about 15 or so years, because I think that the kids are in about their mid-20s when they go back to through the Wardrobe back to England. And at this point, all of them, I think what we found out earlier, is they're all in their like early 20s at this point. So we're really not far away. I'll look it up while you're talking about what comes next.
I just wonder, maybe Edmund's thinking, like, should I admit to everything, or have Corin think that we're just not the same?
Mm-hmm. Here are
name that song.
Our friends over at Narnia Web. They've got the character ages here, and at this point, Edmund is 24, Lucy is 22, Peter 27, Susan 26, Shasta is 14, so a little bit older than I thought. He's 14. And at the end of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Edmund will be 25.
Okay.
So Edmund, this is 1 year. According to Narnia Web, this is 1 year. Lucy will be 23. So this is just simply 1 year, before
away.
This. And actually, Lewis and Walter Hooper, working through past Watchful Dragons, actually has a little bit of a timeline itself that gives some of this outline that Walter Hooper then published that talks a little bit about these things. So this is where they're pulling it from itself. This is from Hooper's work with Lewis's works, which is cool. That's interesting. I was not familiar with this.
Huh. Well, it's nice to have that nice and solidified.
Yeah. Let's wrap up this chapter, because we're about here at the end. Corin and Shasta are about to pull a Mary and Mary and Éowyn move here.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And they're going to dress up in armor and secretly go off to battle.
Yes.
Were you thinking about that?
I am now.
Oh, you weren't? See, that quickly came to mind.
Yeah, when the first time I read this, I was.
Yeah,
for sure.
But that was so many months ago at this point.
Years even. What a great scene. We're about due for another watch, aren't we?
Probably soon, you know. But this does end, not before we get a little pshaw from Edmund. Did you remember reading that?
No.
That little onomatopoeia there felt just very interesting to me.
He does do that. Pshaw.
Pshaw, said Edmund. No one doubts your courage. A boy in battle is dangerous only to his own side. Which again, is it like, Edmund, you were totally a boy in battle not that long ago, and you were, according to Narnia Web, you were even younger than Shasta here. Edmund was 10. He was 10. There's a big difference between a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old. So, he's the king though, and so we're not going to fight him too much here. But they do, they go off to battle, both hoping that once the battle begins, everyone else is going to be far too busy to notice them, and boom, that's where Lewis ends this chapter.
Yeah. On kind of we're about to start ramping up. And that's a great way to do it. It makes you want to turn the page.
Yeah, next chapter, which I can finally read tonight, it's been so long, is the fight at Anvard. So we're going to be headed off to Arkenland. We're going to fight. I'm actually really excited for the climax to happen not in Narnia, but back in a new place in Arkenland. So looking forward to that. And then we just have, after that, 2 chapters left. I am hoping, beyond all hope, but not really, that we finally get to meet back up with Bree, Aravis, and Wynn, because I want these characters to be together. I love all 4 of them together. So I'm hoping that we don't have to wait till like the very end of the book to put them all back together once more.
It'd be nice to have a couple of chapters.
Well, my dilemma here. Okay,
Daniel's dilemma, if you will.
Yes, because I've got to give a little bit of theory here, give a little theory about what is going to happen next. I'm going to guess that at this Battle of Anvard, we are going to see potentially. I'm going on a long shot. I had a really boring one last time. I don't even remember what it was, but it wasn't that exciting. I think what's going to happen here is that we are going to meet back up with Aravis and Twin and Bree, and Aravis is going to have to choose whether or not to fight for the Calormans or to fight with the Narnians. She's been escaping with these people, but I don't think that she's really been like a full-on, hey, I want to be a Narnian kind of character. And I think that at this battle, she's going to maybe even I don't think he's there, but maybe in some weird way, her ex-fiance shows up here, the Vizier, and I mean, it'd be kind of cool if they get the fight, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I think she's going to have to choose between, am I fighting on the side of Narnia or on the side of the Calormans? Because right now she's just been, I'm not on the Narnian side, but I'm just fleeing from the Calormans. So I think that she's going to have to make a big choice in this next chapter.
Wow. Okay.
All right.
Heard it here first.
Well, before we go, Phil, we've got a wonderful email here. Got a wonderful email from Dan and his daughter, Abigail. They've written to us. And this is about Jeremiah 6, and it actually just has to do with the chapter that we most recently read, chapter 11. So I'm going to go ahead and read this for us.
Let's hear it.
Hello, Daniel and Phil. Greetings from Minnesota. My daughter Abigail and I are avid listeners and have been listening to your podcast since Dawn Treader. Abigail is 5 years old and has been listening to and loving the Narnia stories read aloud since she was 2 years old. They are truly evergreen stories. We find new takeaways every time we make our way through. I wanted to reach out on the connection I saw in chapter 11 of The Horse and His Boy with the book of Jeremiah, chapters 4 through 6. The context of this chapter is that God is warning them, and then he's pulling from Jeremiah 4 here. Announce in Judah and proclaim in Jerusalem and say, sound the trumpet throughout the land. Cry aloud and say, gather together. Let us flee to the fortified cities. Raise the signal to go to Zion. Flee for safety without delay. For I am bringing disaster from the north, even terrible destruction. A lion has come out of his lair. A destroyer of nations has set out. He has left his place to lay waste your land. That's Jeremiah chapter 4, verses 5 through 7. He continues, Dan here. The resolution of the passage comes in chapter 6, verse 16. This is what the Lord says. Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. And this is back to Dan. I find that A, the warning of impending doom by a coming army, and B, the instruction to flee to the fortified city, C, the sounding of the trumpet or ram's horn, and to D, stop and look at the crossroads, to be too perfect for coincidence, since all 4 of these things happen in some form in chapter 11 of The Horse and His Boy. There's even a lion mentioned, though the context and meaning is a bit different in Scripture. Lastly, Shasta does find the ancient way of Aslan in the end and walks in it. It is also helpful to note that even though disaster is coming, in quotations, from the north, the attacking kingdom, which is Babylon, is to the south of Israel. The north side of Israel was simply the best place to attack from at the time for geographic and strategic reasons. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Keep up the good work. Your podcast has been a huge highlight for us as we have been home a lot more during the pandemic. Best, Dan and Abigail.
Wow. What a cool connection. What are your thoughts?
Well, I love this.
Yeah.
I want to say, especially to Abigail, thank you so much for listening to our show.
Yeah.
We love that we have listeners young, we have listeners old. It's so great to hear that families are enjoying this. So, Abigail, thank you so much for listening to our show. We love that.
Yeah. Thanks for taking the time to send us an email, both of you.
Yeah. And then moving over to what Dan shared with us, I got this email not too long ago, and I read it a couple of times because I was so taken aback by what Dan shared with us. Again, you have a warning, all four of these things, a warning of impending doom, instruction to flee to a fortified city, surrounding of the trumpet, and then the stop and look at the crossroads right here. All four of these things do happen in this chapter. And this could be something that maybe other people have noticed as well too, but again, I have not been doing my regular reading here. Sure. So, with Dan's thoughts here, I think like many things, when we come across something like this, something that really stands out and is a great connection, we know that Lewis was an incredible reader. He just read so much. And so, we can't really speak whether or not he's looking directly at Jeremiah chapter 6 and saying, here's exactly what's happening. I'm going to perfectly write this in. Mm-hmm. Could he have done that? Absolutely, he could have. Yeah. It could be one of the things where, like, this is just a story that is just familiar enough to him.
That it was natural to
that it's just a natural thing. Or it could be a combination of, I kind of like this. I might try to work part of these things in. Yeah. But absolutely, I think there's some connection. I think it is a little too much of a coincidence for all of this to be something that wasn't even on Lewis's radar at all. And I think, again, what it shows us about these books, as Dan said here, they're evergreen stories. They literally are new things to learn every single time we return.
Right. And it's one of those great moments where, and just from this email, we see that we have so many people reading these books all the time, rereading them, reading them over and over and over.
Yeah.
And then analyzing and coming from different perspectives. And we would not have heard that if we hadn't been doing this show and then had someone email us and tell us about it.
People like Dan and Abigail are what make this so much fun.
Yeah, it's a blast.
Phil and I are just the two goofballs that bought some microphones. That's all it is, Yeah. So it's really and truly it's our listeners who make this such a fun conversation. And so Dan, Abigail, thank you both for listening to the show. Dan, thank you for writing this in to us, and thanks. Yeah, that's really great. This one's a fun one. This was a really fun one to come across and read here in Jeremiah.
Yeah.
Especially, I actually want to take this. I have not shared this with my wife yet. Jeremiah is her favorite book of the Old Testament, so I kind of want to get her thoughts on this as well too. I think she's still listening to Silverchair, so
enjoy this in 2025.
I'm gonna put your wife on blast for a second. The last time we were recording, we were up in the mountains and at the Airbnb, and I said something to her.
Airbnb.
I said something about like, oh, you probably heard us talk about that before, thinking she's been on the show multiple times. Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, no, like, Daniel, I stopped listening at least a year ago. Yeah. So it's okay. It's fine.
Well, she listens when she travels, and we just haven't traveled as much.
Oh, I know. I'm just kidding. Anna does listen sometimes. I think she listened to our first season, and she listened to the Silverchair.
But she listens at 33 RPM, and it's really slow.
People have to listen to Dancing Lawn to get that reference.
That's right.
You gotta pay for that one, boys and girls. All right, Phil. I think it's about time that we wrap this episode up. We're going to be back next time with chapter 13 again. It's called The Fight at Anvard, and three more chapters till the end. It's hard to believe it.
And we might find out where the phrase onward and upward comes from. This episode is made possible by our patrons over at patreon.com. If you'd like to support the show, you too can listen to a bonus episode each month along with other rewards. Special thanks goes to Elias Dean, Hannah Anderson, John Marr, Emily Wakefield, and Ryan Smith for supporting us at our top tiers. Listener feedback can be sent to thenarniapodcast@gmail.com, or voicemails can be left at 406-646-6733. A review on Apple Podcasts or other podcasting app will help other listeners find the show and join our read-through. Thank you for coming along on this journey, and we will be back next time with Chapter 13.